And here we go. We are almost through all the boring stuff, you guys, before we start with the actual shooting bits and so on. It's important that we do go through all of these things. It's a little bit of theory, but you need to understand why you're doing what you're doing before you start breaking rules. If you want to break a rule, you first need to know why you are breaking it. So in this session, we're going to have a look at white balance. It's a little bit confusing, I think, once we start looking at this, but I'll explain that in a minute. The white balance changes the color cast of your entire image. It's a process of basically removing unrealistic color casts so that your white objects will still remain white after you've taken the photo. It's responsible also for the overall warmth or temperature or coldness or whatever kind of color that you would like to capture in your images once you are done. So I just want to run through this. It's a little bit useless information for me, I think, but it's good to have a basic knowledge of this. So the Kelvin, the color temperature is measured in Kelvin. So if you look at a candlelight is a very warm light, but it's not a strong light. So the Kelvin is going to indicate in this graph is going to indicate the strength of the light. So candlelight would be something around about 1,000 to 2,000 Kelvin. With tungsten, or general kind of household lamps will be between 2,500 and 3,500 K. Shooting at sunrise or sunset, you know, if you have a clear sky, obviously will be something between anything between 3,000 and 4,000 K. Fluorescent lamps will be between 4,000 and 5,000 K. Electronic flash is normally between 5,000 and 5,500. I would actually push that up a little bit to about 6,000, 6 to 6,500 as well. Daylight with clear sky, with the sun is above, that's more or less midday. You're gonna push up your Kelvin or use a Kelvin between 5,000 and 6,500 K. A little bit overcast, you're gonna have a look at 6,500 to 8,000 K. And 9,000 to 10,000 K for shade or heavily overcast skies. So I think it's important to note that you know, your camera has got all these different settings. So if you're shooting in the shade, it's very easy, kind of just select your shade, white balance or cloudy or overcast, or when you're using flash or you're shooting daylight or fluorescent or tungsten. But the three most often ones that I use, or most frequent ones, is the auto white balance. On the Fujis, it's actually quite accurate. So when you're not shooting with flash, so auto white balance is great. Custom and Kelvin. I just want to say something here. I just want to make mention of it. So, and that is where the confusing bit comes in because of the strength of the light coming off here. Whenever you are using your Kelvin setting on your camera, that means you can actually set your white balance according to whatever you like. Normally when I try to balance out my white balance with the temperature I feel outside, so normally when I shoot at night, I would make it a little bit bluer. And when I'm shooting at around about sunset, I would make the images a little bit warmer. So the higher your Kelvin, the Kelvin number is on your camera means that, let's say, anything between 5,000 and 10,000 K is going to become warmer. So oranges and yellows and reds and all of those are going to be increased a little bit. Whenever you want to dial it down, so let's say from 5,000 to 1,000 Kelvin, on your camera, your image is going to appear a little bit colder or bluer. With your purples and blues and greens and so forth. It is a little bit confusing, but just remember that this is the actual temperature coming off the light. And if you want to make it warmer on your camera, let's say you want to pump up the oranges or the warm feel and happy feel in your image, then you're going to dial up your Kelvin in your camera. So I just want us to have a quick look at the auto white balance, custom and Kelvin and how they function together. So with auto white balance, all digital cameras have an auto white balance feature. It's very accurate on the Fuji. I remember on my Canon it wasn't as great, or Nikon it wasn't as great, but the Fuji actually nails it quite well, especially if you're not using your flash. It has a limited range though, and was created to for the camera to get a best guess kind of algorithm for each shot, and it normally falls between 4 and 7,000K. The custom white balance setting is very handy, especially when you have if you're shooting in the same, more or less the same lighting conditions. But it allows you to take a shot under a preferred lighting condition, so which we can refer to as a gray reference. And it allows you to set the white balance for the images that's going to be taken under that specific lighting conditions. Normally the image will be taken once this setting is selected, and then the camera will ask you to which image you would like to use as the white balance to be set in that particular scene. The Kelvin setting we touched on a little bit. Really love this. It gives you so much control. You can actually match your color temperature and everything else in exactly the way that you want it. So you can actually set a desired color temperature over a really broad range, from 1000 Kelvin, which is going to be colder, to about 10,000, which is going to be very, very hot, and lots of oranges and so on. It's important to remember that these white balances they're definitely not set in stone. There are instances where your alternative white balances can be used for different scenarios. So at the end of the day, I always say that being a photographer is the nice thing about being a photographer is that you get an opportunity to show the world how you perceive certain things and how you perceive subjects and how you perceive life in general. And the Kelvin setting really kind of helps you to kind of spice up and warm up or cool down your images. That's going to enable you to do exactly that. So I hope this helps a little bit. We'll don't forget to do the worksheet. It's very important that you don't miss the worksheets, and we'll see you in the next session.